Hello everyone. Tonight we're doing Module 4, Lesson 17. We're going to be relating decimal multiplication to fraction multiplication. Now, back in Unit 2, when we were studying operations with decimals, we did multiply decimals by whole numbers, but we didn't multiply decimals times decimals. And now that we have done some fraction times fraction multiplication, we have built a bridge to help us understand decimal times decimal multiplication. We're going to be using place value charts, area models, and we'll also be converting the decimals into fractions to do the multiplication. Let's start off with 1/10 of 4. So I'm going to make a place value chart, and I'm going to need a tens place, a ones place, and a tenths place. And I'm going to put a 4 in the ones place. And I want to multiply that times 1/10. And that means that if I have 4 times 1/10, that means that it's going to be 4/10. And this is a very basic problem, so it's easy to see that if we had 4 times, if we started with the 1/10 and multiplied it by 4, obviously it's going to be 4/10. It's still going to be 4/10 if we reverse the order. And the interesting thing about this, of course, is the fact that this 4, when we multiply it by 1/10, it actually becomes smaller and moves to the right. So this is a preview of something that we studied several months ago. When you're multiplying by a number less than 1, of course, your answer is going to get smaller. Now let's think about how we could turn this 1/10 times 4 into a fraction. Of course, we're going to write 1/10 as a fraction instead of a decimal, and that's written as 1/10. And just over here to the side, I'm just going to put in parentheses 1/10. Two different ways of writing the same value. 1/10 times 4, and that's going to equal 1 times 4 over 10, and of course that equals 4/10. And if I wanted to write that again as a decimal, it would be 0.44. Okay, let's expand on that problem a little bit, and I'm going to just go back and review. 1/10 times 4 means that our 4 is going to move 1 place to the right, and it will become 4/10. But let's say that I wanted to figure out what 1/100th of 4 is. So there's my 4. And I'm going to let you think about where that 4 is going to go if I want to find 1/100th of 4. Hopefully right now you're thinking it's going to move over 2 places. This 1 is 2 places to the right of the decimal. So that 4 is going to come over here, and it will become 0.04. And if I wanted to find out what 1,000th of 4 was, still got my 4 in the ones place. I'd like you to take a minute and decide where that 4 is going to move to. And if you had it moving over here into the thousands place, you would be right. Okay, here's your first quiz question. I want you to find out what 1/100th of 6 is. You can use a place value chart. I know a lot of you don't need to use the place value chart, so you don't have to, but if you're feeling like you kind of forgot what we did, this was several months ago, then go ahead and make the place value chart and move the digit. Remember to fill in the zeros into the places between the number and the decimal point so you can write the correct answer on the Edpuzzle quiz. Okay, now we're going to figure out what 1/10 of 1/10 is. And we're going to do this by using a hundreds chart. And I'm going to highlight a tenth in yellow here. Okay, so that is my first 1/10. Okay, so I have 1/10 of a whole. That big square is a whole, and I've highlighted 1/10 of it. Now what I want to do is find out what 1/10 of that tenth is. So I'm going to highlight that tenth in a different color. And since I have 10 parts in this column here, I have 10 total here, 10 squares. I'm just going to highlight one of those 10 squares, and that will be 1/10 of 1/10. And then I need to look. Meow. So let's expand on that a little bit, and we're going to find 2/10 of 1/10 this time. So I'm just going to label this is one whole, this whole square, and it's divided up into 100 parts. Each row and each column is going to be a tenth. So this time I'm interested, my first number is 2/10. So I'm going to be highlighting 2/10 this time. So 1, 2 of the columns, 2 out of the 10 columns are highlighted in yellow now. And I want to know what 1/10 of that is. Well, 1/10 is going to be one of the horizontal rows, and where they overlap will be these bottom two right here. Of course, this whole bottom row is 1/10 of the whole. And where they overlap, I have 2 highlighted squares out of the 100 now. So that means that I have 2 hundredths total. And if I wanted to solve this problem by using the fractions, converting my decimals into fractions, 2/10 is written like this, and I want to multiply that times 1/10. And of course that means 2 times 1 over 10 times 10, and that will equal 2 over 100, which is the fraction way of writing the decimal 200ths. Okay, here's your second and last your turn problem for the day. 1/10 of 1 2/10. So you're going to need 2 wholes because, of course, 1 2/10 is greater than 1. So we need a full 1. And then we're going to highlight part of the second hole. And then we're going to find 1/10 of that part. And you can use an area model, or if you want to turn the numbers into fractions, you can do that and find your answer that way. Either way, it is slightly tricky just because this one is more than 1. So think carefully about how to get the answer and then put it on the Ed Puzzle quiz. Good luck, and I'll see you in class tomorrow.